Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Natalia Hansen from Humane Canada Summit for Animals. We are almost finishing this series of live streams with some of our Summit for Animals speakers because the conference is happening very soon in less than 2 weeks. And the goal of these live streams is to encourage you to meet our speakers, some of the speakers and the topics that we will have at the Summit for Animals. Now, this year, the conference sold out 6 weeks ahead of schedule. So, normally I would be encouraging you to register, but now there is no more room. But I still encourage you to visit the website, which is humanecanada.ca, and read up on all of our speakers, read their full bios, see our schedule, and add your name to our email list so you can come next year. We will announce where and when the conference will take place in 2026 at the end of this month or beginning of next month. So, today we will be talking about the future of farmed animal welfare, different perspectives, specifically from a science and a research standpoint. I have my two guests waiting in the wings. One is joining us from Quebec, and the other one is joining us from BC, so very bright and early. All right, so without further ado, let me tell you who they are so they can join us. First, we have Dr. Jamie Ahloy-Dallaire. He's an associate professor in the Department of Animal Science at Université Laval in Quebec City, where he teaches and conducts research on animal ethics, behavior, and welfare. His work spans farmed mink and pigs to laboratory mice, focusing on improving animal welfare through better understanding of behavior, resilience, and care standards. He also contributes to national committees setting welfare guidelines for both farm and research animals. His current research program focuses primarily on factors affecting robustness or the capacity to overcome challenges to welfare in farmed pigs. Our second guest, Bianca, is originally from Brazil, fellow Latina, Bianca Vandresen. She has a degree in veterinary medicine and a master's in science in animal welfare. She's pursuing a PhD in the animal welfare program at the University of British Columbia. Her research focuses on public attitudes and opinions toward animal production. In addition, Bianca has experience working with farmers and nonprofit animal welfare organizations. All right, let's welcome them officially. Good morning. Hello, Bianca. Hello, Jamie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here. We have a lot to cover. And by the way, for anyone who is watching this live stream live, whether on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, I encourage you to add your comments because this is an opportunity for you to interact with some of our conference speakers. So I would love to start right from the beginning, and I would love to ask you both. Maybe we can start with you, Jamie. What does a regular workday look like for you? I already spoke in your bio what you do. You work in research, you work in science. So tell us a little bit about what this is like.
Sure. So I'm going to start by saying that at this point in my career, I've been a professor in animal science for about 6 or 7 years. So my typical workday looks a good bit different than it did back when I was a graduate student, because I spend a lot of my time teaching, mainly undergraduates, about farm animal behavior and welfare. And this is part of the agronomy program here at Université Laval. So these are the students who, for the most part, are going to go on to work as professionals in animal production industries or adjacent fields. Basically, the people who farmers will rely on for a lot of outside counsel and advice in the future on topics including animal welfare. So I spend a lot of my time trying to make sure I give those people a solid grounding in animal welfare. Uh, if we go more towards the research, I spend a lot of the rest of my time supervising graduate students, and that's where the real science is happening. I myself, day to day, will go out to farms once in a while to do some research, but I'll be mainly involved at stages like designing experiments and analyzing data. And the students are the ones who are out in the trenches making everything happen. Uh, in terms of kind of their day to day, in terms of how they run research, our lab typically works on farmed pigs. We've started up a little bit of research with dairy cattle. And the general thrust of the research is sort of two pronged in terms of our aims. The first one being that we're trying to develop methods and validate methods for measuring or assessing animal welfare. And in terms of what that implies in terms of data collection, in large part, we prioritize behavior, watching the animals, because it's a non-invasive way to study them, and because often if there's something wrong, a change in behavior is the first sign of trouble. And so we're spending time watching the animals in person or on video. And then we also have other types of interaction with the animals, for example, to collect physiological samples, sometimes blood samples, for example, to measure concentrations of stress hormones. Ideally, whenever possible, less invasive approaches like sampling saliva, which we can get voluntarily by just having the animals chew on something. And then our second goal is developing and validating ways of improving animal welfare. And here, the general approach is usually we try to demonstrate something as sort of a proof of concept in kind of idealized research settings, so that eventually we can try to scale it or to port it to something that would be workable in the context of regular farms, and test it in practice in a commercial setting. So we work with a lot of different partners, including research centers and commercial farms, the commercial farms, especially in the dairy sector. So we're driving out to farms a lot of the time to do our data collection. And yeah, as I mentioned, that involves watching the animals. That involves, in some cases, setting up test situations where we'll bring animals out of their pens into a specialized area where we expose them to a standard situation, like something mildly or moderately stressful, to figure out how each individual animal reacts in these situations. And ultimately, the aim is always to try to get a better understanding of their behavior, to understand their needs and their wants, and how to assess each individual's welfare.
Okay, and I feel like you may have already answered this. So is this what you do at the Ahloy-Dallaire lab at the Université Laval in Quebec City?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the projects themselves. The main focus of the research we do on pigs, as you mentioned in the intro, is a concept that we call robustness, or we could call it resilience, which basically means the capacity of an animal to overcome various different challenges that might affect the animal's welfare. And basically, most of the time, if you ask someone how we should go about improving the welfare of captive animals, whether that's on farms or in other settings, they'll come up with solutions that involve improving the environments in which the animals are kept. So, for example, letting dairy cows go out to pasture, or taking animals who are housed in barren pens and giving them enrichment items. And that's absolutely a crucial part of improving welfare. And we do things like that in the context of basically every project we do in the lab. But our real focus is on a kind of complementary solution, which is figuring out how to make the animals themselves tougher. What are the factors that might make it so that the animals, when faced with a certain challenge, will just not be as stressed by it? And the idea there is that, the unfortunate reality, I think, for farmed animals is that they are exposed to challenges to their welfare at various stages of their lives, and we can try to minimize them. We can try to optimize by improving the environment, but at least the way that farming is practiced now, we can't do away with all of these challenges. Things like being handled by humans, things like being transported in a truck, things like being mixed with other members of their species who might be aggressive or competitive. And so we look at the factors, especially differences in personality or factors early in life, in the lives of individual animals, that might shape their personality in a way that will make them more resistant when faced with these types of challenges to their welfare in terms of stress, challenges to their health as well.
Different challenges. Well, thank you for that. And I know you're going to speak about this further in detail at the conference. So thank you for giving us that sneak peek. And I would love to hear from you now, Bianca, because you are enrolled at the University of British Columbia and you're doing your PhD in animal welfare. So tell us a little bit about the program before we get into the questions.
Yeah, for a fun fact, the program and I share the same birth year. So in 1997, the program started. It also is my birthday. So it's going to be around 28 years this year. And it's just a big group of people that work in multiple areas of animal welfare. So as Jamie shared, his work is more focused on like pigs and now starting with dairy, I heard. That's interesting. I'm working with dairy. But we also have people working with lab animals and companion animals. and also the social sciences side. So that's also what I work with. Animal welfare involves a lot of aspects, a lot of
Mhm.
components, and a main component is the human side. Who are the people involved in raising those animals, and why do we care about animal welfare? So that's basically the line of research that I work with, and many of my colleagues work with. Um, and yeah, so the animal welfare program, we have two main centers, one in Vancouver or campus office, and also the UBC Dairy Education and Research Center in the countryside. And that's a fully functioning dairy farm where we do most of our dairy research. And I'm very lucky to be able to work there because we have a close contact with the staff. So all the farmers that work with the cattle, we get to have a good relationship with them, learn about their realities, and that kind of gives us a more background when we're doing research with other farmers. And also because we are working in the dairy farm, my office is like right above the barn. Sometimes in the middle of the day, I have the luxury of go down, hug a cow when I'm stressed. I spend some times with the baby calves. So that's definitely a plus of my work day. And yeah, I cannot speak for all the other areas. As I mentioned, we have people working in specifically on companion animals or lab animals. So if people are interested to learn more, we have more information on our website about the people involved in the projects that we're running.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And you said a key word, which was relationships. I think it's so important that we remember that we're not fighting against each other. And I know this may sound utopic and we're all holding hands and running in slow motion like a movie, but it really comes down to building those relationships with other stakeholders because I feel like that's when we can really make progress and see progress instead of fighting. So I would love to ask you both. I'm not sure who wants to answer first, but how do you envision the future of animal welfare science and research in helping bridge these perhaps divisions that there are between sectors coming together from different perspectives to really help the welfare of the animals, which is that end goal?
Mhm. Jamie, you would like to start?
Sure. I mean, I think um, I think that's a very interesting question that actually ties into the subject of the panel that we're going to be putting on at the Summit for Animals. So Bianca will be moderating. I'll be one of the panelists, and I think she'll tell you about the rest of our co-panelists a little bit later. But the focus of the panel is going to be on exactly that, on bridging the kinds of perspectives that different stakeholders might already hold or that they might bring to questions about farm animal welfare. So here by stakeholders, we mean people like scientists, like animal advocates, farmers, vets, regular members of society. And they might not hold automatically the same kinds of views with respect to animal ethics or with respect to specific farming practices, whether they should, how things should be on a farm or how things should not be on a farm. And obviously, the future that we do want is everyone running and holding hands, as you mentioned. So
Mhm.
that's what we'll be discussing in the panel. I'm not sure that I have a ready answer for you right now, but I will be curious what the discussion brings. Um, and I think we could talk about the activity that we'll be running alongside the panel as well. So besides
I
the
would
panel,
love to hear it.
okay,
Yes,
sure.
please tell us.
So the
Tell
panel
us,
will be
yeah.
morning of the 29th, but besides the panel itself, during the rest of the conference, we'll be holding an activity where we want to hear from other attendees of the conference about this same topic. So we'll essentially have a booth at the summit, and we'll be proposing, excuse me, we'll be proposing an activity there, which is centered around the question of what does it mean to you to be a good farmer? And so first of all, we want to try to get every participant who's willing to participate, we want to get their own individual perspectives on that question and maybe see how that differs between different types of stakeholders who are attending the conference. And then we want to try bridging that gap or the gap that might exist, that we think might exist between the stakeholders by having people engage in what's called a frame reflection exercise. Bianca, do you want to explain how that's going to work or what that is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so just to add also about how to answer that loaded
Mm.
question, right? How to help, how animal welfare science can influence on the future. I think one of the key things is that animal welfare science is relatively new, a new field of research. So we're still figuring out a lot of things, and one of them is this: how do we engage with all the people involved in that science? So it's very interdisciplinary. We have a lot of different people with different perspectives involved. So the goal of the panel is to also kind of provide more information and more understanding of, okay, how do we take those different perspectives into account in the development and the involvement of our research field. And in the frame exercise in the game that we say, we're basically stimulating people to think on other people's shoes. So we're going to be asking what is a good farmer to you, and you're going to explain it with your own words because we're very curious to know. But then we're also going to stimulate people to think on the position of someone else. So we're going to have a fun little wheel to spin where we're going to have different groups of people who are involved in animal welfare. So, for example, policymakers, farmers, the general public, veterinarians, and even the animals. So, if you were a cow, what would be a good farmer to you? So, we're trying to stimulate those kind of reflections so we can get a more like deeper understanding of what people consider to be a good farmer, what are their responsibilities, but also practice that putting yourself in other people's shoes and then see if there's any connections there and how can we find a common ground, let's say, to build the future of animal welfare science.
I love that. I think it's so good to learn via games, in a way that doesn't feel pressure, or it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to give a right or wrong answer. Like, what if I'm wrong? This seems so fun. I will be spinning the wheel. I'll be there for sure. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for thinking of a way that's engaging and fun and different and innovative to really bring all of these perspectives together. And from what you both just shared, it sounds like you're not looking for a right answer. You're just looking to hear what different people think. And I love, Bianca, what you just said. You're encouraging people to put themselves in others' shoes, because it's so easy often to just say, well, I think, I believe, and it's like black or white. This is it. It's like my way or the highway. But this is what this conference aims to do as well. And usually in our promotions, we always say, come for the learning, come for the networking, come to challenge your perceptions. Because a lot of times people show up at the conference on day one and they think, okay, this is what I think, these are my beliefs. And then by the last day when they leave, hmm, maybe something shifted, maybe a session they attended or a speaker or networking one on one, and they've opened up their mind and they're seeing issues from a different angle. And that's what I love about the panel as well that you're hosting, is because you have different perspectives. So I would love to hear as well now. Obviously, we couldn't bring all four panelists and the moderator, Bianca, together for this quick live stream, just the two of you representing. So tell us a bit more about who are your other co-panelists and what will they bring to the discussion on farmed animal welfare at Humane Canada Summit for Animals.
Yeah, so because we wanted to bring a lot of different perspectives for the panel discussion, so we can actually discuss that loaded question as well, how to avoid a polarized future, we brought together a group of amazing people who are all involved with animal welfare, either as scientists, but scientists with different focus of experience, and also one policy representative. So I'm going to be moderating as the next generation of animal welfare scientists because I'm still doing my PhD. I'm going to be there to make the hard questions, let's say, that the
Mhm.
young generation has in mind to them. And then we're going to have Jamie as one of the researchers representing a university-based science, basically. And then we're going to have Jen Yoon Chun from the University of Saskatchewan. Um, so Jen will be representing like an industry aligned researcher. So it's going to bring more the applicability of the science to the industry side of things. And then we're having Katie Koroleski from UVC, one of my colleagues. She's a postdoc here with us, and she works similar to me on the social sciences. So she will bring the human side of animal welfare issues. So what does the public think? What do the farmers think? And all of those complicated aspects of the human aspect of animal welfare. And then we're going to have Jackie Weeper from the Division Director of the National Farm Animal Care Council. So in Canada, we have the NFAC, which is that council that regulates a lot of practices that we do with farm animals, and they take a lot of science into account when they develop those regulations. So Jackie has been in that council since it was established in 2005.
Founded.
So she's gonna, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. So she's gonna be bringing the policy making side of the discussion, but that is still connected to the scientific side. So a lot of different people, and we all of them involved in science in some level. But as you can see, even the scientists vary within their own group. So different sciences involving with farm animal welfare in different ways. And then what we want actually is another big component of the panel is the audience. So we will want the people to bring their own concerns because each person will have their own different background. Maybe we'll have people representing advocacy groups and things like that that are not represented in our panel. So we do want people to engage and hopefully be there to make the hard questions as well so we can discuss them together. What I'm doing in advance of the conference is also asking questions from the broader audience. So I know the summit is sold out, so unfortunately, not more people can sign up. If people didn't sign up and still have questions, they can email me, or made a LinkedIn post that I think Humane Canada shared. So people are welcome to contact me with any of the questions that they would like us to discuss, and then I can bring them to the panel discussion. So yeah, we want people to be there, get involved, and so we can have a broader discussion and conversation about these hard questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw you were very active on LinkedIn and you were encouraging the conversation to start even before the conference, encouraging people to say, what questions do you have? So that's fantastic. So Bianca is very active on LinkedIn. You can find her with her name right here on the screen, Bianca Vandresen. And I encourage you to find that post. And even if you aren't coming to the conference, but you're watching this and you have a question, a comment, a concern regarding farmed animal welfare, post it there. So, Jamie, you will accept questions from the audience, right? Even though Bianca is the moderator, people in
Hmm.
the audience at your session, at your panel, will be able to raise their hand, ask the questions, and any of the panelists will be able to answer it, correct?
Yes, that's right. So we'll have sort of pre-submitted questions that Bianca will have fielded, and also interaction with the audience live
Perfect.
during the session. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, because that's the goal as well of these conferences is being able to raise your hand and ask questions and feeling that it's a safe environment. And again, there's no right or wrong question or right or wrong answer. We really encourage conversation that is respectful. We have something that's called the humane discourse, and we invite all voices from all different sectors. That's why the Summit for Animals, when it started, it really was a conference very tailored for the animal sheltering sector because Humane Canada, sorry, is the Federation of Humane Societies and SPCAs. But with time, we are now in our 12th edition, and we've seen more our audiences coming from different areas. So we have researchers and scientists, we have policy, we have advocacy, we have vet medicine. So it's really nice to see how it has progressed. Really cool. So we're almost at the top of the hour. I can believe this has gone by so quickly. Actually, before I ask you something else, I just wanted to highlight a comment from Justin Manning on Instagram who says, "Cheers to all the real animal lovers." So just wanted to highlight Jamie. Sorry, Justin. Okay, so I wanted to ask you both about what the next generation of animal welfare scientists looks like. And you just mentioned, Bianca, you as a moderator, you represent that next generation. So I would love to hear from both of your perspectives, from someone who is getting her PhD and somebody who's already been in the field for longer, who is you, Jamie, who is mentoring this next generation.
Hmm.
So how about we start with you, Bianca?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of pressure. But one thing that I was thinking of when reflecting about that question is that, again, we mentioned that animal for science is a relatively new field, but we see a lot of people getting interested on it. So we see more and more students and new scientists getting involved, and also more people from different regions of the world. I know we're going to be discussing more focused on Canada during the summit, but thinking about that, for example, I think most of my colleagues in the animal welfare program are from other countries, actually. So my experience from Brazil, animal welfare science is even more new there than it is here. So we're getting a lot of new perspectives, different cultural aspects of animal welfare science. And I think taking that this diversity into account is a big important part that the next generation is bringing. Um, but also, I think it's hard for the next generation to be like, okay, I know the answer for things. I think we do need that collaboration. And I think having panel discussions like the ones that we're going to be hosting are a good first step towards building that future together. Because I think being open to that kind of collaboration with the other fields would be very important to guide us on, okay, what are the points that we should be looking into as we go into the future. And also learning from the older generations like Jamie and all our supervisors.
Yeah, love that. Perfect segue to pass it on to you, JD. What do you
Yeah,
think
I
the
mean,
next
I like what
generation
Bianca
can
said
evolve?
uh,
Mhm.
about diversity. I have kind of another form of diversity in mind that I think applies to the new generation as well in terms of not just where they come from internationally. We also have a pretty international lab here, but also the kinds of experience that they bring kind of professionally and educationally. So I think if I think, for example, about my own lab where I have mainly PhD students who are working right now, a couple of them are vets. So they come in with a different background than my own and a different set of skills and expertise. We also have some others who have, for example, one of my students, her name is Annick Boileau. She's got a lot of experience as a whale researcher and a whale expert, and a few years ago got her master's on pig behavior and welfare in Scotland in a lab that does similar things to mine. And now she's working on a project where she is taking um, the types of welfare measures that we typically apply to farm animals that have been developed mainly in that context and trying to apply them to wild whales in the St. Lawrence River, trying to assess the impacts of human activity in the seaways and of human disturbance on the whales, on their individual welfare. So we see these people bringing in kind of completely different sets of preoccupation, but adopting these tools. We can also think about one of our students who's a computer vision whiz, who's developing tools to automatically detect things like aggressive behaviors in animals. And whenever I have meetings with her, she and her co-supervisor is more mathematically inclined to talk over my head. So I think Bianca said earlier that animal welfare is a multidisciplinary field, and I think it just keeps getting more and more multidisciplinary as we just kind of keep absorbing people who have different sets of background expertise and trying to um, grow the field in that way and get as much as everyone can out of it.
Nice, that's so cool. And it's so interesting you just mentioned like technology. And we
Mm-hmm.
live in an era of technology. We have cell phones, we have computers, we have smart TVs. Like our lives are ruled by technology. So I think it's so cool and so interesting and progressive how we can apply technology for animal welfare. And we've had a couple of presentations actually from students at the University of British Columbia in the animal welfare program, same program you're taking, Bianca, in the past, where they've shared their research on. There was one session by Bailey Egan a couple of years ago,
Mm.
and she was conducting some research on sound and how it affected shelter cats. I can't recall the exact description of her session, but it's really neat. And this is also an invitation for anyone who's watching this to consider submitting a session proposal for next year's conference. We don't have the educational topics just yet, but our call for speakers will most likely open this summer and keep an eye on our social media. Add your name to our email list. It's on our website, humanecanada.ca/summit, because if you see any of our educational topics for 2026 and you feel like you have experience, knowledge, or insights to share, come and share them with us. Submit a proposal because that's how this panel came to be. These people you're seeing here, Jamie,
Mhm.
Bianca, and their co-panelists who are not here, saw this opportunity, raised their hands, put something together, and now they're coming to Montreal very soon. Is that how it happened? Who put this together? Which one of the five of you brought you all together for this panel? I'm curious.
Who was it? I believe it
Jen
was
was started, I
Jen.
believe. Yeah,
Yeah, Jen who
she was the driving
initiated the
force.
discussions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And then,
That's
well,
great.
funny enough, we're all connected in some level, right? Like Jen and I have a paper together on pig welfare that I did during my
Mm.
master's. That's how we know each other. Jamie and I work for the Animal Welfare Foundation of Canada, which is a charity, registered charity in Canada, where we get to learn a lot about animal charities, and we are always promoting grants, but also looking for donors. So check us out. Um,
Also, I'm the head of the
and
nominating committee, looking for future board members. If you see me at the conference,
Oh, good to know.
yes,
All right.
speak to me.
exactly. Yeah, and then we
That's great.
have Katie. Sorry.
No, you go on. I'll say something after. Tell us about Katie.
I'm just wrapping up saying we're all connected in some level. Katie works with me. Jackie, I think, is also friends with Jen. So all people from different fields, but animal welfare science is such a small field that we all end up connected in some way.
Yeah, you know each other somehow. I wanted to say a very well-deserved shout out actually to the Animal Welfare Foundation of Canada because they supported us in the past with travel grants, with being able to help get people to a conference because we know sometimes it could be challenging, especially when you don't live in that city. Like Bianca, for example, you're coming from Vancouver, right, to Montreal. There have been instances where we're hosting the conference in Alberta, so people from the East Coast have to travel. So we know that there are some financial implications in attending a conference in another city. And so thank you to the Animal Welfare Foundation of Canada because in the past they've supported us with grants and helped several people attend the Summit for Animals. Well, we're right at the top of the hour. Thank you both so much for this engaging conversation. We will, of course, keep the replay if anyone missed the live stream. But again, connect with Bianca on LinkedIn. She has a post there looking for questions, looking to start the conversation now before we get to Montreal. Any final words, lastly, to close this off? Jamie, Bianca, anything you want to share or a key message that you want people to walk away with?
I think one thing I would share is just a shout out to the UBC Animal Welfare Program because I use their work so much in my teaching, and I think that a lot of what has come out of there in the past 30 years or so is really one of the keys towards bridging these perspectives from different people because they've identified a lot of ways in which scientists like me, for example, might do some very neat work on animal welfare that ends up not addressing the preoccupations of the farmers and how farmers might bring improvements to welfare that they consider important that don't necessarily address the preoccupations of members of society or the consumers of their products. And so I think that kind of work is a crucial part, and I'm glad to see people like Bianca furthering it today.
Oh, thank you,
That's great.
Jamie. Yeah, I just want to add that, as Jamie mentioned, us within academia build a lot on each other's work, as Jamie just shared. And I'm very happy to promote this panel in a way that we can expand that collaboration to other areas outside of academia, because I think those collaborations with the community and other groups is very important, especially for our field. So I'm very excited for the panel discussion. Also, thank you, Humane Canada, for taking our our proposal and giving us the floor to promote this discussion.
Absolutely. We welcome more scientists. Welcome more research. We welcome more voices. So again, stay tuned for the call for speakers opening for the 2026 conference. It will be this summer. Thank you both again. Have a fantastic day. Have a good long weekend, and I will see you both in Montreal in just a few weeks. And thank you to everybody who watched. And we will see those who register in Montreal. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.